At first glance, these two engines look identical, both resembling SpaceX's Raptor 3. But one is real, the other is China's Mammoth 1 copy. Star Shuttle technology replicated the sleek exterior perfectly, even matching the simplified design that took SpaceX years to achieve. But here's what they missed. SpaceX went through Raptor 1 and 2 first, spending years testing, failing, and learning what works. China skipped all of that and jumped straight to copying Raptor 3's final form. So what happens when you copy the outside without understanding the inside? And why does this guarantee explosive failures that could destroy their entire program? Let's look at what China actually built. The Mammoth 1 engine produces 240 tons of thrust at sea level, less than Raptor 3's 280 tons, but still stronger than the Raptor 2 currently flying. The efficiency sits at 330 seconds of specific impulse, competitive but weaker than both Raptor versions. On paper, these numbers look respectable. The real question is whether an engine built by copying photographs can actually survive ignition. Star Shuttle technology claims Mammoth 1 passed a system plan review in early 2024, with component testing planned before year's end and service entry by 2026. That's an incredibly aggressive timeline for an engine this complex. SpaceX spent years developing each Raptor generation, yet China expects to skip directly to the finish line. This confidence reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of what they're attempting to replicate. The copying extends beyond the engine. Standing beside Mammoth 1 is Glacier 1, their launch vehicle, and this is where the strategy becomes clear. The first stage mirrors Falcon 9 with grid fins and landing legs. The body uses stainless steel like Starship. Between stages sits a hot staging mechanism identical to Starship V2's design. The second stage borrows features from New Glenn, Vulcan, and Ariane 6. Glacier 1 isn't a copy of one rocket, it's a collection of successful features assembled into a single vehicle. The dimensions tell part of the story. At 5 meters in diameter, it's larger than Falcon 9 but smaller than Starship. Analysis of available images suggests the first stage stands roughly 50 meters tall, the second stage another 30 meters, bringing total height over 80 meters. The company promises 40 tons to orbit, with launch costs of tens of thousands of yuan per kilogram. These are bold claims for hardware that exists only in renders and presentations. This approach reveals a critical misconception. Chinese engineers seem to believe that combining the best features from different rockets creates the best rocket. The reality is far more complex. SpaceX didn't randomly select Raptor 3's design. They arrived there through brutal evolution. Raptor 1 was complex and less efficient. Raptor 2 simplified operations and improved reliability. Raptor 3 pushed simplification even further, reducing parts count while increasing thrust. Each generation taught them what breaks, what works, and what can be eliminated. That knowledge doesn't exist in photographs. It lives in test data, in engineering notebooks, in thousands of hours of engine fires at McGregor. When you see Raptor 3's 3 or 4 large visible tubes, you're seeing the final result of years of refinement. China copied those tubes, matched the compact design, even replicated the overall form, except theirs is silver instead of black, and there's an unusual lever system on the left side that Raptor lacks. But copying the external form doesn't transfer the understanding of why those components are positioned exactly where they are. The startup sequence alone demonstrates this gap. Elon Musk has called Raptor's ignition insanely complex, requiring insane timing precision to avoid destroying the engine. Raptor 3 uses full-flow staged combustion, where both methane and oxygen pass through preburners before final combustion. This maximizes efficiency, but demands flawless execution. Igniters must fire in precise sequence. Chill-down processes must occur at exact rates. Turbines spinning at extreme speeds must reach operating parameters in perfect harmony. Timing is measured in milliseconds, and small imbalances create destructive vibrations that tear engines apart. SpaceX learned these timings through deliberate failure. They've destroyed dozens of engines at test facilities, sometimes intentionally pushing systems to failure just to map the boundaries. Some weeks at McGregor saw 24 engine burns, many designed specifically to break things. This isn't waste. It's how you discover where limits actually exist. China plans to skip this entire process, moving directly from design to flight. The consequences of that decision will become apparent during their first ignition attempts. The rocket design exposes deeper problems. Glacier 1's second stage appears disproportionately long relative to the booster. To properly control such an elongated upper stage, the first stage should measure 60 to 70 meters in height. This imbalance suggests designers prioritized payload capacity without adequately considering stability and control during ascent. At hypersonic speeds, these proportions matter enormously. The grid fin placement presents another serious issue. They're positioned dangerously close to the hot staging section, directly in the path of extreme thermal and mechanical forces released during separation. SpaceX added protective vented rings on Starship, specifically to shield components from hot staging effects. Glacier 1's grid fins sit exposed in the blast zone. When staging occurs, those fins will likely suffer damage that makes controlled descent impossible. Without functional grid fins, the booster can't steer during re-entry, and the entire reusability concept collapses. Their cost projections depend entirely on reusability that their own design makes nearly impossible. While China rushes to replicate last year's technology, SpaceX continues advancing. Recent photographs from Starbase show Raptor 3 prototype SN20 with significant upgrades from initial prototype SN1. A protective cover now shields the central tubing system from vibrations and extreme heat. The turbine section has been enclosed into a unified block, protecting delicate components during high-stress operations. The hot gas duct ring appears larger and more reinforced, possibly using welded joints instead of flanges for reduced mass and improved leak resistance. These improvements came from real testing data. SpaceX identified weaknesses in early prototypes and implemented solutions within months. That's the advantage of genuine understanding. You can iterate rapidly because you know exactly what you're looking for. China will discover their problems during engine tests, or worse, during flight attempts. And when failures occur, private Chinese aerospace companies often lack resources to recover. The market there is unforgiving. One major setback and programs disappear entirely. Consider what happens when Mammoth 1 actually attempts ignition. Complex engines don't fail gracefully, they fail catastrophically. When timing is off by milliseconds, when turbines don't reach correct speeds, when fuel flow rates aren't perfectly balanced, the result is usually rapid disassembly. Without SpaceX's extensive testing experience, Chinese engineers won't know where to begin troubleshooting the debris. Even if they somehow achieve stable engine operation, the rocket itself presents enormous challenges. The unbalanced proportions, poorly positioned grid fins, and copied hot staging system they don't fully understand. Each represents a critical failure point. SpaceX spent years perfecting hot staging on Starship and still lost boosters during early attempts. China expects to succeed on their first try with a design they copied from images. The mathematics of that equation don't favor success. By the time Mammoth 1 attempts its first flight in 2026, SpaceX will be operating Starship 5-3 routinely with proven Raptor 3 engines. Current schedules target Raptor 3's debut as soon as December 2024 on Flight 12. Booster 18 is already in final stacking with the common dome, forward section, and hot staging ring positioned in Mega Bay 1. Ship 39 follows close behind. Engines will be installed by late October or November, and after cryogenic testing, they'll be ready for flight. Raptor 3 represents just one step in SpaceX's roadmap. Musk has confirmed more powerful versions are coming, Raptor 3X or Raptor 4, potentially exceeding 330 tons of thrust per engine. This evolution is necessary for Starship 5-4, which targets 10,000 tons of total liftoff thrust on Super Heavy and 2,700 tons on the ship. That's more than 3 times Saturn V's thrust, the most powerful rocket ever successfully flown. Testing of next-generation engines could begin in 2025, with Starship V4 launching in 2027. China is copying technology that's already being replaced. They're chasing a target that's accelerating away from them, and the gap widens with each SpaceX flight. The ambitious attempt to shortcut years of development will teach them a lesson that can't be copied from photographs. There's no substitute for actually doing the work. So what's the real lesson here? China's Mammoth 1 looks impressive in promotional materials. The specifications sound competitive. The timeline appears ambitious. But none of that matters without fundamental understanding. SpaceX didn't become the industry leader by copying. They became it by failing faster, learning harder, and refining relentlessly. Every Raptor 3 carries the DNA of hundreds of destroyed prototypes, thousands of test fires, and years of painful lessons. China bet they could skip all of that. They looked at the finish line and decided the journey didn't matter. When Mammoth 1 ignites for the first time, we'll discover if that bet pays off. My prediction? The first test will reveal exactly how much invisible knowledge separates a photograph from a functioning engine. Those millisecond timing sequences, turbine balance points, thermal management solutions, none of that transfers through images. The space industry is entering a phase where the gap between leaders and followers isn't measured in technology but in experience. SpaceX has the scars proving they've done the work. China has blueprints and ambition. History suggests that's not enough. What happens when Mammoth 1 attempts ignition? Will copying work, or will this become another cautionary tale about aerospace shortcuts? Share your thoughts below. If you found this valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Atlas Space so you don't miss what happens next in this space race. There are no shortcuts to orbit.